I'm Gary Nickerson,
And I'm Quinn Taggart.
and this is Outside My Window. Today we're chatting with Warrant Officer Nicholas Robicheau. Warrant Officer Robicheau joined the 26th Field Regiment, located in Brandon, Manitoba, in May of 1994 as a reservist. After a tour in Bosnia in 2000 and Afghanistan in 2013, he was posted to Yarmouth in April of 2019 and serves with the 84th Independent Field Battery. The origins of the 84th actually date back to 1812, however, the recognized birthday is October 4th, 1878. On the 30th of June 1968, the 14th Field Regiment, which was headquartered in Yarmouth, was disbanded, and the 84th Independent Field Battery was formed. Warrant Officer Robicheau, welcome.
Thank you.
So, first of all, I have to ask you, when you were younger back in 1994, what led you to decide to join the reserves?
Well, my father was in the Reg Force Army at the time, and I'd been in the cadet program. I'd gone through Army cadets, and it just seemed the logical step for me to join. I was still in high school, and I wanted to make some money and have some adventure.
What, is it a military family? Like, is it just your dad, or did it extend further back?
Yeah, it extended further back as my both my grandfathers were in the war. My one was in World War I, and my dad's father was in World War II. And then my dad had joined the reserves and joined the Reg Force. So it's kind of become family tradition, I guess. And my son is in the 84th Battery as well right now.
Wow, that's great, carrying on the family tradition.
No, absolutely.
Can you talk about the very important and integral role that the reserves play in the Canadian Armed Forces, if you wouldn't mind, Warrant Officer?
Yeah, the reserves makes up a main or a feeder into the Reg Force is one of the roles. So a lot of people like myself have joined from being a reservist to being a Reg Force, or just reservists that have stayed as part-time soldiers and decided to join and go on tours such as Afghanistan and Bosnia, or in the wartime, like there was reservists that joined into the Reg Force. So it's a big part of what makes up the Canadian military.
Now, Warrant Officer, if somebody's looking to join in and come into the reserves, are other countries employing the same sort of techniques? Is there a feeder program in other countries for their militaries as well?
Yeah, a lot of militaries will have part-time local soldiers and use that as a way to help recruit and train maybe younger when you still want to be at home, and then learn some of those skills and then decide on whether you want to make that your career or not. I know that the Americans have their Army Reserves and their National Guards as well as their regular force, and other countries will use similar idea and setup.
Now, I know that some countries have mandatory military service for people as they get older and set for university and the like. Do you think that Canada might look to do the same sort of thing? Do you think that would be a benefit for us? Don't mean to put you on the spot for that. I apologize.
Yeah, no, I think a number of countries have used that, but a number have kind of gotten away from it. I know, like Germany had conscription, and it was mandatory to do so many years of service at the age of 18. But I think having a volunteer army like we do is a little bit more beneficial in the long run. Obviously, when you get stuff like World War I and II, and they had conscription, there was a purpose to that. But to do it just generally, I don't know if it's a good fit necessarily for a country, but there is benefits to having that.
What sort of conversion rates are you seeing for younger folks that are getting involved with the reserves to sort of graduate, I guess, if you can use that word, into being part of the Reg Force?
I don't know the exact numbers, but I know that there is quite a bit for And we see it here in Yarmouth. Like I grew up in Yarmouth, but I never, I didn't. Sorry, I didn't grow up. At age 3, I moved away, and my dad had joined the Reg Force. But when I was in the Reg Force, I know that there's a lot of people that come from the Yarmouth area that join the Reg Force, and in my dad's age group, and my age group, and in the younger age group. So it's similar across the country. And when I was with 26 Field and Brandon, a number of my peers at the time had all moved on to the Reg Force. It does make up a substantial recruiting base into the regular force Army.
What about training? So if I was looking to come in as a reservist, what's the training schedule like? Is it similar to as if I had applied into Reg Force?
Yeah, it is similar. It's the same training, but generally for the reserves, it's less time involved. So you're not getting it. You're getting all the basic skills, but you're not getting as much maybe practice at using those new skills. So it's just less time. Like the reserve BMQ course, the basic military qualification is 4 weeks long. Where in the Reg Force, you're looking at 9 weeks in going to Saint Jean to do it. So there's a number of things that are scaled back, but you're learning all the same basic soldier skills.
Now you must be always recruiting. So with that in mind, if anybody's interested in reaching out and getting a feel for what the reserves is all about, what's the best way for them to do that?
Reach out to the local recruiter. Here in Yarmouth, we have Sergeant Hunt is our local recruiter at the Armories, and you can reach and talk to her and find out how to apply and get involved. Or there's opportunities to come and see what we do. We have open house nights or like bring a friend nights. So if you know someone that's in the military or in the reserves and you want to come and see what we do, certainly you can. Obviously, within the constraints of COVID right now, makes it a little bit more difficult. But outside of that, we are definitely open to having people come in and getting a feel for what it is that we do.
I was going to ask that as well. I mean, with COVID, has that seriously impacted your ability to recruit?
Yes, yeah, and it's also impacted. I think a lot of interest in the military right now seems to be low, both in the Reg Force and the Reserve world, and overall the recruiting numbers are down quite a bit. But it has impacted how we do business. But hopefully it's picking up and we're slowly moving out of it. Obviously, this next Omicron right now is affecting us again and flaring up, but hopefully we can see a way out of this.
Now, with the history of the 84th, again, it goes all the way back quite a ways, but what's the relationship with the town and the 84th? What's the dynamic there?
I think it's always been a good relationship, but sometimes throughout the years it's gone up and down, and I hear a lot of people talking about being misunderstood as being cadets. But the unit's been in Yarmouth for a long time. The Army presence, like citizen soldiers, has been something that Yarmouth has been a part of, well, since the beginning of the town. So I think it's an important part. And like everything that happens, you get high peaks and low peaks of numbers and outreach with the community. But I think it's important part to play. Yeah, even a couple of years ago, like we had the Freedom of the City, and I can see throughout the unit we've had a number of, or Freedom of the Town. There's a number of certificates in the unit. So every, 10, 15 years, there seems to be Freedom of the Town parade, and that goes back 40, 50 years probably.
That was fascinating. I remember covering Warrant Officer the Freedom of the City, and that certainly I think opened things up for a lot of members of the general public, whom drive by the, as we civilians refer to it, the armories, but may not really have understood the historical significance and as you said, the connection to the town. And I also have noticed over the last few years that the 84th has, not lately because of COVID, but a lot of open houses and come on in, see what we do. They get a chance to talk to everyone, and I know that was quite important, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And trying to get out to all the different events, whether it's uh, participating in the Christmas parades or when other kind of groups like the fire department has their open houses, getting a gun and soldiers out there to be a part and seen in the community is important to us, I think. Of course, events like Remembrance Day and firing of the guns. Um, I know when we fired, we had a salute for the 150 event for the Beak 150, and we fired a single round or two rounds off in. No, I'm sorry, I'll correct that. One round in Yarmouth, and it made quite the impact on Facebook. Um,
Yeah, it had quite the impact overall. I think we had fire and police show up, didn't we?
yeah,
Despite the fact that you did announce that you were going to do it.
yeah, but it did take some people by surprise, and obviously that loud crack of the gun firing was something that's not really heard a lot in the community.
No, no, and I've participated, I volunteered with Viking Cable before Eastlink and so on, and I've showed up to video Remembrance Day ceremonies many times at the Cenotaph, and of course when they moved it indoors at the Mariner Center, I did start probably about 8 or 9 years ago producing the video for the live stream for there, and nobody told me the gun was out back. And so here I am. I'm trying to figure this out, and it's my first time doing the production and figuring out the logistics of it. And we get into last post, and then bang, the gun goes off. Took me right out of my chair. And then even in years, even in years after that, I know it's coming, but it's always still a very impactful thing as part of the ceremony. So, I mean, I think that, whilst it doesn't happen a lot, it's a very important part of the pomp and circumstance of the event.
Yeah, and we physically have two guns here at in 84th Battery right now. One of them is NS, but generally we try to have those two guns out for Remembrance Day. And one does the Mariner Center ceremony, and we have the second gun that rotates between three different areas in the Tri-County area, and that's Wedgeport, Pubnico, and Soniaville. So we'll rotate them each year through there, and we have a gun participate in their Remembrance Day ceremonies. So it's not just either, we're not only focused on Yarmouth itself, but the area outside Yarmouth as well. We try to participate in events.
When you're doing training on location, at either at the armory or you're getting out and about with the team, what sort of things are you training with and for? Is it a standard approach thing, or is it something that's a little bit more localized as far as equipment and the sort goes?
Well, it depends on what we're doing that particular night, because there's a couple different kind of areas that we focus on. One would be our individual soldier skills. So that's using our C7 rifle, practicing what you would learn in basic training and how to be what you need to refresh yourself on being a soldier. And then there's the artillery aspect and focusing on training with the LG1 howitzer and how we deploy that and use that. And then we even also have another focus on LUSAR. It's Light Urban Search and Rescue. And that's a mission task that the unit's been given. And that's training, it's non-Army training, and it's learning how to use a completely different skill set with focusing on structural collapse, on rope rescue, on searching during a natural disaster. And that's an interesting aspect that we have as well to train with. So there's a number of different ways that we can focus our training at, and it's not just one specific thing.
Because it's not just combat, right? I mean, you can be drawn in at a moment's notice on a variety of different tasks, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen that from, well, I've been here, this is my third year that I've been posted into Yarmouth. And my first year that I came in was when we had Hurricane Dorian come in. And so we had a number of soldiers, a section of soldiers that stood up for Oplentis, and that's the domestic response operation for natural disasters. They stood up to go help the community out with that. Then we've had, with COVID happening, Op Laser was our domestic response to that pandemic. And initially, when that first hit 2 years ago, we had about 18 people from Yarmouth who stood up to make a platoon of soldiers. That was myself included in that number, able and willing and ready to respond in whatever way we needed to. And at that point, like, the whole world was coming to the screech. We didn't know what that was going to be. Luckily, it didn't go into the worst case scenario, but we had a number of troops within Yarmouth that were ready to help and assist the community and our province and the country.
Now, you're going to pardon my terminology because I might not get it quite right here, but within the 84th, what sort of job classifications are there that are local that people can train for? Because I know my son is involved with logistics, which makes sense. But then what else is there other than that?
The main focus of the regiment or of the battery is artillery. That's what we are. We're an artillery unit. So it's being gunners and working on the howitzers. That's what the majority of the people that would sign up in Yarmouth would be employed as. But there's a number of other support trades that are needed, and that falls under the logistical side. So whether it's human resources or finance services, it's kind of the other two focuses. But we're not completely limited. If for some reason you don't fit within those categories, we can take people on as infantry or armored or any other trade and find positions for people. But our main focus is as artillery soldiers, gunners.
Now, I know I attended one of your open houses, and I didn't get a chance to do it, but you have like a simulator out back for shooting, which I thought was really kind of cool. Can you give us a sense of how technology has changed the way you train?
Yeah, we're just trying to bridge more computer-based training in order to let us practice our skills, so when we go live in the field, we know how to do it better. And here in Yarmouth, we have two different simulators. One is the SAT, which is Small Arms Trainer, and that's what we can hook up personal weapons to and use them to shoot at a computer, at a screen, and run through scenarios there. And then we also have another simulator. It's the IFT, which is Indirect Fire Trainer. And that's another computer-based program that you can practice firing artillery missions on. So that's what we have here. But there's also another whole stream, virtual battle space, VBS. So you're basically playing like a first-person shooter that's connected with a number of other persons. So you can practice your convoy drills, your individual soldier skills on on a computer-based setting, which really helps to practice the different skill sets and communication piece, so that you're just more proficient when you go into the field at doing what we need to do.
If someone's listening right now thinking, geez, I think I might apply and like to join the reserves, like to join the 84th, but I don't know what kind of skill sets I have. When a person joins, they're accepted. Is there kind of an assessment done to see, maybe if someone's got some really good math skills or what have you?
Yeah, when you apply to join, you've got to take a CFAT test, which is an aptitude test. So there's, I think currently 3 different tests that you take, kind of IQ testing, and then that would give a gauge to the recruiter to what trades you would be best suited to go into, as well as some trades have limitations. You got to make a certain score to be able to get into it, and that can be a thing. When people go to join, they don't focus on it as much as they should, and there's quite a few people that walk through the door that end up failing the aptitude test because they're just not prepared as well as they could be, and it really slows their process down for getting in. So if anyone wants to join, like, practice the aptitude test before going in the door. If you fail it, you get a second chance. And then if you were to fail it a second time, then you have to show that you've done some sort of reschooling or education, or like finished high school or gotten a degree or diploma in something in order to get another chance. So it's better to not just go in off the street cold, because the test can be a little bit challenging, especially if maybe you've been out of school for a while and your mind isn't just thinking about doing long division or fractions. And it's not that your job is based on that, but being able to get through that aptitude test can be a real challenge for people.
Just a technical question for you, if I might, Warrant Officer. Um, when you first joined the reserves out west in Brandon, Manitoba, you joined a field regiment, and then you were posted here to the 84th, which is a field battery. I'm just curious, what's the difference between a regiment and a battery?
Yeah, so the battery is a smaller level unit. It's a subunit. So normally a battery would be 4 to 6 howitzers with a BC commanding it, a major, and then multiple batteries make up a regiment. So it could be anywhere from 2 to 4 batteries that make up a regiment. Like in Halifax, there's 1st Field Regiment, and 84th Battery falls under them. The commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel, is responsible for. There's a battery in Halifax, 5-1 Battery, and then 84th Battery here in Yarmouth, and we make up the 1st Field Regiment.
When you join in, you've got your basic training. Everybody kind of has it in their head what basic training is, but what's after that? I'm sure must be some ongoing training, different levels of training, and so on that goes into it.
Yeah. So when you first start, you'd start off with your BMQ Common, which is your basic Army training. That's teaching you how to wear your uniform, use your personal weapon, the different rules that govern the military. And then your next course would be your trade-specific training. So for artillery, it's a DP1 gunner. So then you would go onto that course and learn how to use the howitzer, how to handle and identify ammunition, fire discipline. You learn that. That's how we pass orders in the artillery, and how to be specifically an artillery soldier. And so once you're finished that, then you're considered to reach your operational function point. So then you can operate as a soldier within the military. And then there's a number of extra training or courses after that you can take to learn all sorts of different skills. One of the big ones would be your driver wheel course, learning how to drive military vehicles. And it's basically taken like a driver's ed program for the military. And you start on the smaller vehicles and move your way up to the bigger vehicles, and taking your air brakes course, as well to drive the MSVSs. That's the bigger Army trucks that we have in Yarmouth that we tow the howitzer with. As well as there's courses on how to be a communicator, how to talk on the radio properly, and the voice procedure that you need to know, and using the radios, as well as a number of technical artillery courses that you would learn within the artillery. So there's a lot of training post your basic training to take, and it never stops through your whole career. You're going to take some sort of next level training. There is an end to it, but there's a number of courses. You're always going to be learning or teaching or taking something new in the military.
Do you have to learn how to drive a stick, or are the vehicles automatic now?
Yeah, most of the vehicles are all automatic now. It's just like in the civvy world, a lot of stuff has gone to automatic. There's not too many standard vehicles around anymore, but I can remember learning how to drive stick in a military Jeep, the Altus Jeep, and the instructors didn't like teaching that part as much.
I've never not owned a stick, and I'm not looking forward to the fact that I'm going to have to hunt around to find one at some point as they talk about maybe phasing that out in the civvy world. So I'll have to go to a vintage car. I'll have to convince my wife that I need a 69 Corvette, and that's what we're going to drive.
It's definitely a skill set for somebody to have.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, of course, that it's a bit of a lost skill. It's one of the things I taught my son early, mainly because we had a stick. So if you wanted to learn how to drive, he had to learn how to drive stick. And certainly it's a skill you don't forget. Once you learn how to drive a stick, it's there.
Yeah, and it's definitely a useful skill. Like when I went to Afghanistan, we were using a number of different up-armored SUVs and civvy pattern vehicles, and one of them was I think it was a Range Rover, and it was a standard. And it was the thing in my group. We had to go around and say, well, who can drive standard?
Who can drive a standard?
And a lot of the young guys couldn't do it.
I can just see it. I really can. I can visualize it. Oh, well, who knows how to drive a stick? Nobody knows.
And the way to learn wasn't in Afghanistan.
No, I can well imagine that that's not really the time and the place to learn how to drive a standard. From a training perspective, just to kind of backpedal that for a second, if I join in and I go in as a gunner and maybe logistics is something I want to kind of slide into, can you kind of change paths?
Yeah, you can throughout your career. It isn't always as easy as what we would hope it to be, but you can do an occupational transfer in between different trades. A lot of the time, some switch like that might happen because of some sort of injury. If somebody sustained a more longer term injury and couldn't be a gunner anymore, they could occupational transfer over to being one of the other logistical trades and be able to carry on their career that way. It happens in the reg force quite a bit, especially once a person has a few years under the belt, they get some injury and they can't do that trade anymore, but they still have a lot of years of service left. So people will move over to supply tech as a trade or something like that in order to be able to keep serving. And you do see it in the reserve world as well, people making those type of trains. I've seen a number of people try to, they've gone over, like if they wanted to be an MP, they might have come in at their local unit in, like, say, the gunner trade, and then moved to a place where there was an MP unit and tried to transfer over that way.
I would also think, Warrant Officer, there's for reservist recruits, there's quite a learning curve. The military is, really a world of its own. It has its own lingo, its own terminology, protocols, learning the ranks and all of that. That's got to be a big deal to learn.
It certainly can be, but like everything else, once you get into it and it becomes what you know, it just becomes what you know. It's like any other job. Like if you're to go be a nurse or electrician or a carpenter, the lingo of that job you need to know and learn what it is. But our training teaches you that for sure.
Has technology in the way of like social media and the internet in general made recruitment a little easier? Or do you think maybe it's made it a little harder?
No, I think overall it's probably made it easier. It's easier to get the word out, and pass information and share kind of what we do, hopefully. I know in the last year or two, 84th Battery, and in particular, I got a soldier, Master Corporal Sam Martell. He's taken the lead on our social media, and I think he's been pretty successful in putting the word out for 84th and making connections and sharing posts and information and trying to let people know who we are and what we do.
Is that something that Master Corporal Martell kind of took on his own, or is that an official position?
It's it's a secondary task.
Gotcha.
It's not his sole purpose, and he's employed as he's one of our human resource administrators in the unit, and that's his primary job. But he's taken it on because he's just interested in technology, taking pictures, social media, and we've given him kind of a little bit of leeway and in able to develop it and make connections, and he's really had some great pictures and posts that have gone out there to help share the word of the battery. And I think there's more of a feel for that across the whole country and the Army, in able to be able to leverage those different type of platforms to share what we do.
I would think that, as any recruit coming in, be it Reg Force or reserves, you're coming to the table with some sort of skills. Whether it's somebody fresh out of school, maybe they're a little too green, but if you're picking somebody up in their 20s or the like, they're going to be bringing a certain skill set in. So if they applied in for, say, a gunner position, but you saw something a little extra that might warrant looking at them for a different role, do you shape them a little bit and kind of nudge them in that other direction because you feel that they would add more value to the unit that way?
There is possibilities to do that, but with the reserves, it's a little bit, and with us being gunners, we need to flush out those gunner ranks. And when people are doing it as a part-time employment, it's more so getting to experience something different and to have fun being a soldier and really chomping into that. But I know from my experience within the Reg Force and training Reg Force soldiers, I would see that quite often. I was posted to Wainwright, Alberta, and teaching some BMQ land courses out there, and I would see people coming in, and I get to know them after a couple of weeks, and then I find out what trade they're going, and sometimes it really surprised me to what trade they were going in. It's like, I really see you should be doing this job instead of that job. But a lot of it depends on the person too, right? And what they want to do and how focused they are on it. But if somebody did have a certain skill set, then, within what we can do, I wouldn't I wouldn't discourage someone or necessarily try to focus them in one way or another, but let them know what the options are.
Sure, no, that makes perfect sense. Sounds like a human resources function. Master Corporal Martell will be right on that. The other thing I wanted to ask you as well, Warrant Officer, is is the training portable? So if I start out here with the 84th and let's say I move out west, am I able to just sort of walk right in?
In essence, yes, you can transfer between units. There is a paperwork trail and there is approvals that have to happen, but people can do that. You can carry that job and that appointment from one spot to another, making contact with the unit in the new place that you're going, and depending on what type of unit they are, and most of them will have positions available. If they were full up, they might not, but the reality is that no unit is ever full up. So, and I know, particular for Yarmouth, we've had that quite a bit with people from Halifax. Last 2 years ago, we had a soldier that was a medic, and she was coming into the Yarmouth Hospital to be to train up as a emergency room nurse, and she got attached posted to us. So she would do her job there and then come with us and train and go on exercise with us. And when her time was up, she ended up going back to Halifax. We have one troop right now who started off with the SIGS regiment in Halifax, and he's being transferred over to us, and then occupationally transferring from a signaler to an artilleryman or a gunner. And so that certainly is an option and available for people. You're not locked into just being wherever you joined at.
Obviously, warrant officer reservists are trained for, worst case scenarios. We certainly know the history of our famed 84th here. You yourself were sent to Bosnia and Afghanistan. When you have the young recruits coming in, that may not be front and center in their minds. Is there a conversation at some point that the officers, perhaps such as yourself, would have with these young people, just to let them know, very possibly they'd be called into service?
Yeah, certainly, and it's a part of the recruitment process and the screening process and interviews, and letting people know. Obviously, we're a volunteer army. Even within the right force, people are still volunteering to come in. So, within the reserve world, there's no obligation to go necessarily overseas, but it is something that's there, and it is a reality that you could go into those operations. And we've seen it with Sergeant Kirk Taylor, the ultimate sacrifice, and it's happened a lot across the country, with Afghanistan being the most current operation, with quite a few deaths that happen over there. But it's something that you do get screened through in the interview and let know. I don't know, without making it seem too bleak or over the top, but it's not Boy Scouts or Army cadets. It's the Army. And when you train to use that weapon, it's not for hunting, right?
So, just in closing, Warrant Officer, again, if I could ask you, if someone is listening, if they're interested in joining the 84th, or just like to have some more information, what's the best way they can go about that?
Yeah, they can contact our recruiting officer, Sergeant Hunt, at she has an office in the Armories on Parade Street, or they can go to Canada.ca, and there's an application process online. You can Google it, and it'll come up and walk you through the process. You can stop in and talk to Sergeant Hunt or anyone that's at the unit and get information about joining. And
you have a Facebook group as well, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. 84th Battery, Independent Field Battery on Facebook, 1st Field Regiment out of Halifax. There's 2 different Facebooks there, and there's lots of good information. There's Facebook, Instagram. We're on Instagram as well, so you can look back and see what we've done over the past couple of years and get a feel for what it is that we do.
Warrant Officer Nicholas Robicheau, thanks so much for chatting with Quinn and I. We certainly appreciate it.
No, thank you for your time. I appreciate you having me.
I'm Gary Nickerson.
And I'm Quinn Taggart.
And this has been Outside My Window.